Guys, Dodge and Burn is finally here inside Luminar Neo. Don't use it. We've been waiting a while, but finally it is here. The Dodge and Burn tool is now in Luminar Neo. So in this video, let's take a look at how to use it, examine whether we should use it, and if there are any shortcomings, which, spoiler alert, there might be, we're going to take a look at how we can overcome those. Since its initial release, we've seen Luminar Neo really develop, no pun intended, into a really strong photo editor. But there's still a couple of things that up until now have been missing. So now in this latest update from 𝗨𝗀𝗲𝗃, one of the most anticipated tool, the Dodge and Burn tool, is finally here for us. You guys are old hands at this, but just in case you don't know, Dodge and Burn is literally a way to brighten or darken specific areas in our photo so that we can better guide the viewer's attention, give our photos more of a three-dimensional sculpting, and perhaps bring a little bit more contrast where we want our viewer's attention to go. It is absolutely a must-have skill if you want to get the most out of your photo editing. I've used it to great effect in all genres of photography, from landscape work through to wedding photography, from portraits through to architecture. It's relevant to all of it and is absolutely a skill set that you guys need to adopt if you want to get your editing to that absolute top level. In this video, I'm going to keep the example super simple so that we can just focus on the application of the tool itself rather than where best to dodge and burn in a photo. If you guys want me to cover a more in-depth, deep dive masterclass, just write masterclass in the comments below, and if I get enough requests for it, I'll absolutely put together a much longer video showing you all the best tips for getting the most out of the dodge and burn technique. So without further ado, let's get into Luminar Neo. This rock formation in the sea gives us everything we need to explore the Dodge and Burn tool. But before I go into the edit section, look at this little jigsaw piece icon next to the Luminar Neo logo, and that refers to a brand new HDR plugin that Luminar has just released, and I will also cover that as well. I'm very excited by that. We can also see in this latest update that the info panel has moved to a much more appropriate place in this top right hand corner so that we can examine all of the details related to our file. But what we're going to do today is just jump into the edit section, and just to give us a kickstart, unlike normal, I'm just going to go into the presets and choose Fast Fix from our landscape scenery collection. From here I'll jump back into the edit section, and if we scroll down at the bottom here we can see in the professional section, and if that's folded away and you don't see it, just click on that and that will open those up. We can see that we now have Dodge and Burn added. So let's open up Dodge and Burn and explore this tool. So this is intended to be a one-stop shop for darkening and brightening specific areas in our image. And we have access to a paintbrush which we can click and start painting, and that's either going to darken our image, or if we come down we can select lighten and we can paint with that version of the tool to brighten up areas of our image. The intensity with which we paint with is controlled by this strength slider here. So if we want to paint the highlight with maximum intensity, we push that all the way to 100. If we had it about 50%, we're going to get half of that effect, and so on and so forth. So we can drop that down to 22, so we can be a little bit more subtle. Obviously the same applies if we're using the darken. We can crank that strength all the way to 100. Click and paint, and that's going to darken things down very quickly. 50% of the effect, or whatever strength amount we feel is appropriate. And now the third tab here is the erase tool. And so if we go too far with any one of these tools, what we can do is just erase that effect by painting over it, and that's just going to bring us back to our original image. Again, the higher the strength of that erase tool, the quicker we're going to erase that effect. I'm just going to jump over to the darken tool again, and you can see that we can control the size of that as well, and we also have this slider here which is going to control the softness of it. So if we drop that all the way down to 0, make a slightly smaller brush, and I just start painting with that, you'll see that obviously we have a very hard edge. To be honest, that's not particularly useful, so I will normally keep my softness set all the way at 100 so we get a much softer transition of any application of that tool. Now, one of my favorite things about the Dodge and Burn tool is that we now have an amount slider sat at the top of the tool. And so that's going to allow us to work with full intensity. And then if we feel like we've just gone a little bit too far, which is often the case, we can then just grab that and just dial it back a little bit. Let me show you. So we'll just grab the amount slider. It's on 100 at the moment. And as we start to ease that back, we take the effect away, or we could just bring it back and have it sat somewhere around half the amount. So you might have your before and your after. But now we know how the tool works, let's look at how we might actually use it. I'm just going to reset the tool, and just like all of Luminar's tools, it has the arrow to reset. I'm going to have a quick think about my photo and decide what I might actually want to do in terms of brightening and darkening. And so let's say I want to darken the clouds up here in the top right, and then along the horizon line here I may want to just brighten things up, perhaps introduce a bit more contrast between the brightness of the sky compared to the rock formation here, and maybe even introduce a little brightness in the sea and a little darkness in the foreground so that our eye leads into the brighter bit. And I'm just going to start with 20% and just build it up from there. So I just click paint and release. And so I've darkened this cloud by 21% at the moment, as denoted by the strength of 21. I've now gone over it again and again, and I'm just sort of darkening this very top area here. I might want to darken down this foreground part of the sea, make my brush a little smaller now, just using my left bracket key. And now let's switch over to lighten so we can brighten up some areas. So I'm going to do one stroke along the horizon line here just to brighten that up. Again, that effect's being applied with, well, 22% at the moment. And let's say we want to brighten up the actual rock itself. We can start to paint over that as well. And every subsequent click and stroke is just bringing more intensity, more of that effect. And as you can see what's happened here, as I've started to brighten up the rock, because I've bled over the edge here, I'm getting a bit of a halo effect, which isn't what I want. So I could switch to the erase tool. I don't want to erase with 100%, otherwise that's going to also create problems for me. But I can just click and start to paint around the edge of this, just remove that halo if I want to. Now I've gone too far erasing that effect, so we almost have an inverse halo where it's actually darker now. And so it might be a case of going a little bit back and forth with the tools and just sort of juggling it until you get it to look the way you want. Let's suppose we want to brighten up the top left corner as well. I can click and start painting in that top corner. And then a line down there as if the sun is bleeding from that top left. As with all tools, we can use the very handy eyeball tool to see our before and our after, our before and after, and you can see how we've embellished the contrast that was already there. We've also done a bit of resculpting in terms of the light, but we've totally gone overboard, and so we might want to bring the amount slider and just ease that back to a point where we feel it's a little bit more believable. How about that sort of 56% before and after? So that's how you use the tool in a nutshell. Super easy, right? Now, if your goal is to do and this is the keyword, subtle resculpting of light, this tool will be absolutely fine. But there is a very real problem with the dodge and burn tool. Have you spotted it yet? It's the color saturation, right? When we use the burn side of the tool, conveniently named darken, the colors are getting much more saturated. Conversely, when we dodge and lighten the image, the colors are getting a little more washed out. As I say, if you're just doing a moderate application of dodge and burn just to subtly resculpt the light, those shifts in colors and those oversaturations may not actually be noticeable at all, in which case 100% go for this tool. It's a really quick and easy way to achieve a very nice effect. However, on this channel, we care about things like unwanted color shifts. And so after I've shown you just how bad this increasing color intensity can be, I'm going to show you an alternative approach that we can use that is going to solve all of these problems and still give us the miraculous world of dodge and burn at our fingertips. Right, let's have a look. So when you are using the dodge and burn tool, what I would recommend is to actually split out your lighten and darken effects into two separate tools. And the way to do that would just be to work on two different instances of the tool. So in this first one, we're going to come to darken, and I'm going to be really aggressive with this one. I'm going to crank the strength to 100%, and I'm going to say I want to darken some of this cloud, and I'm going to click and start painting. Ooh, that's looking good. Okay, let's say we want to go even further and burn down this bit on the right hand side even more. Let's click and start painting. Yes, of course, you're not going to push your dodge and burn that far. However, I just wanted to illustrate just how bad this can get. Surely when we're using this technique, we want to have the confidence that our colors are not shifting hideously like this. So let me show you a much better approach that we can use instead. Okay, before I close that down, let's do one more streak along the blue here, and you can just see what it's doing to the saturation level of the sea. It's really not good. So we're going to reset this. That's going to get rid of that instance of the tool, and we'll just jump into the edit section here, and we're going to delete the dodge and burn that we did there by resetting it, and then we're going to throw this one in the bin and reset that as well. So we're back to where we started from, simply with the application of that preset. So now we're going to jump back into the tool section, and let's say we want to tackle the dodge and burn light sculpting in a similar way, but this time we're not going to apply it with that dodge and burn tool. What we're going to do is come up and use the develop tool. Now this is a much better way to tackle dodging and burning. It just takes a little shift in thinking about how the develop tool works. So for most of us, our assumption about the develop tool is that it's going to be addressing the photo globally, and we're going to be making changes to the brightness, the contrast and all of that to the whole photo. However, we just need to make a subtle shift in our thinking about how the tool is going to operate. We're going to use one instance of the develop tool to darken down certain areas of the photo, just like using the burn in dodge and burn. Then we're going to use another instance of the develop tool to brighten certain areas of our photo, just akin to how we'd be using the dodge tool. Not only is this going to solve our color saturation issue, but it's also going to give us much greater flexibility over that dodge and burn effect as well. So let me show you how we'll do it. Let's start by darkening certain areas down. So all we need to do is open the light section of the develop tool here, and if we grab the exposure slider and start darkening that, you can see that we're absolutely darkening the pixels, but we're not increasing the saturation as we did with the dodge and burn tool, which is exactly what we want. Another issue we have with the darkening effect in dodge and burn is that sometimes things pushed so far into darkness that they become black, and we can overcome that by using the develop tool. So let's suppose we want to paint this effect in only where we want it, but if we were to go over this rock formation here, we don't want to lose all of that detail. So all we need to do is grab the shadow slider for one, that can help us. We can also open the blacks and the white slider, grab the black point and move that up, and if that's not lifting the shadows enough, we can also open the curve section and put a point very far down on the left hand side which represents those shadows, and then we can just lift those up. And if we feel like we're brightening up those areas where we want to keep things dark, we just put another point further up on the curve and we can bring those back down. And now if we scroll up and toggle the eye tool to see our before and our after, you can see that we've darkened everything down, but we haven't affected that saturation level at all. So now we just need to paint that effect in only where we want it. So how do we do that with a develop tool that doesn't have a paintbrush built into it? Well, it kind of does, the masking feature. So currently we're in the adjustment section, so we just need to click on the masking section here. And from here we can just grab the brush and start painting it in, or as a starting point we can open the mask actions and actually invert what we currently have here. And as soon as I do that, we're going to see the original, but we haven't lost any of our adjustments, they're all still there. Now it just means that because we've inverted it, we're now able just to paint it in only where we want it. So I'm going to increase the brush size and I'm going to drop the strength down similar to what we had for the actual dodge and burn tool. And I'm going to click and start painting. Now this is one key difference. Because we're working with the masking tool rather than the dodge and burn tool, as you start to build this effect up and start painting, you're actually going to see the mask that you're painting, and the more of that mask you paint in, the more intense the red is going to get. And so you're only going to see your effect once you release that mouse, and now you can see that darkening. But already you can see we're darkening things down just like the burn tool, but without that shift in color intensity. Now I'm going to do the same on the sea. Okay, let's come up and toggle our before and after, and you can see that we've darkened down those same areas, but this time we haven't introduced any unwanted color saturation. Okay, let's close that down and open up a brand new develop instance, which this time we're going to brighten things up and use this as our dodge effect. So I'm going to bring the exposure up just until I start losing detail. Now this is another brilliant thing about doing it this way, because just like with the burn tool, how we can push things to pure black, we can also overexpose the highlights using the dodge tool. However, because we're in the develop tool here, we have the ability to grab the highlight protection slider and we can bring that back down to the left. So we know once we start painting this effect in, no matter how bright we get, we are not going to overexpose those areas. Not only that, but if we feel like we're losing contrast, we can grab the smart contrast slider and start pushing that up. And if by increasing that we've just overexposed things just slightly, we can just bring that exposure level back down. And one of the big problems brightening things up using the dodge tool was when we painted with the lighten mode, we were actually losing all of the color saturation. And that's what's happening here. However, once again, we have more flexibility with our develop tool. Now, I can't open it and go back in because, as you know, once you close the tool down, it drops into the edit section. So I just need to click over here, and on the top of the stack, I can re-access that tool. So all I need to do is jump into the color section, and if I felt like it's getting a little too washed out, we can grab that saturation slider and move that to where we want that to be. And now, just like before, we're going to jump into the masking section. I'll invert the mask, grab myself a brush, and now I can start painting that in. So last time I put a swathe of brightness just across the horizon line there. Let's do that again, and we'll see if we can actually brighten up the rock formation without introducing too much of a halo. And in the last version, I brightened up the top left hand side as well, as if there was some sort of sunlight coming from there. And just like last time, I've been too heavy-handed around the rock, and I do have a halo. Shame on me. But just like before, we can come in, select an erase tool, and just try to taper that away. Okay, let's have a look at our brightening layer, aka our dodge layer. So here was our before, here's our after, before and after. And if I use the \/ key on my keyboard, we can see this was our original, and this is our photo simply with a preset applied and a simple dodge and burn that has not shifted the color. So if you guys do want a more practical demonstration on how to get the most out of actually using dodge and burn, I'm happy to do that. Just write masterclass in the comments below and I'll put something together for you guys. Now, before we become disgruntled customers unhappy with the implementation of the dodge and burn tool, please, we must remember this. This shortcoming of the dodge and burn tool is not unique to Luminar. I see it across the board in so many different photo applications. When I do professional work inside of Photoshop and I'm implementing dodge and burn, I am still not using the dedicated dodge and burn tools. I'm finding workarounds so that I can do dodge and burn but without influencing and increasing color saturation. So if you are new to photo editing and you're looking for a photo editor just to get you up and running and give you really good results, I would still recommend Luminar Neo way above other applications. So if you want to get hold of it, I have a link with a discount code in the description below, so help yourself to that. And I've got a lot more free training on the channel, so I'd love to see you in another video, including the one that has just popped up here. So go ahead and click that, and if you haven't subscribed already, there's always that button right there which you can click to join the club. It's not really a club, but you know what I mean. Right, see you guys, I'll catch you in the next video.